Hello, everyone. It's Nikita, the founder of I Am Resilient, and I'm here to share a little bit of information about my journey to building the I Am Resilient movement. So I will share my screen with you now and present a slideshow that I created for a leadership conference, and I believe other people would benefit from seeing. So I'm incredibly grateful to share this with you because I believe that it is your opportunity right now to step into a leadership position where you can exercise your ethical and transformational strength and shine it on other people. So, like I said, I am the founder of I Am Resilient, a movement toward collective optimal well being. And we are a media and publishing agency offering various tools from different perspectives while addressing upstream issues as well as current issues that our population is dealing with. So I'll tell you a little bit more about our services and what we do towards the end of the slideshow. But first, I want to talk to you about my journey of building an inner resume for mindful leadership. So I'll just change the slide here. So I cultivated my paper resume over time, and I spent a lot of time thinking about my paper resume, thinking about what companies would want from me, what I should have as my skills, and actually evolving and forming my life at a lot of times around building this resume and building my expertise. And although my career opportunities became endless, the outer resumes are what organizations use to determine if the applicant can meet the standards required in a role based on experience and education. So it really serves the organization. And an inner resume is really important in leadership. The inner resume includes the standards that we set ourselves in order to actually maintain integrity in the work that we do. So the inner resume helps us to make ethical decisions based on our innate goodness while fully leveraging our strengths. So it really provides the opportunity to be in our values and shape our own future based on who we truly are. And this is why it should take a little bit of precedence as we evolve our careers and as we evolve our lives in this ever changing world. So I'm very grateful that you are here to absorb this and to listen and step into your own leadership. So, one way that we actually build our inner resume is through mindfulness. And mindfulness actually strengthens our conscience. So, the conscience is that red flag system that we use for what we view as right or wrong. So it actually invites us toward insight and breakthrough when we listen. But if we don't listen to it, it can lead to apathy, numbness, and disengagement. So I first came to mindfulness at the age of 15 when I was drawn to a yoga class at my local gym. And I was drawn in by the peacefulness and serenity of everyone in the room, as well as the teacher. So I knew I enjoyed the idea of it, but I actually had no idea in the moment how much it would shape my career and my choices and my entire future. So when I was in high school, I applied to nursing school, which at the time had a 2-year wait list to get into the program. So during that 2 years, it was very important for me because I was able to explore the things that I was interested in. I took psychology and photography, as well as yoga classes, and I eventually took a yoga teacher's training and then traveled to Southeast Asia for additional training in yoga. And I started the nursing program after the 2 years, and I actually continued my study of yoga and mindfulness and overall health and well being. I grew increasingly interested in the connections between the ancient yogic practices and our modern Western healthcare. And I used yoga and mindfulness for the practical aspects in nursing. So we know that nursing, there are a lot of, medication errors and there's a lot of burnout. So I actually tapped into the research and what I knew about yoga and mindfulness, and I brought this into my practice. So I would meditate every night for 7 minutes, especially before a stressful day if I knew, the unit I was working on was short-staffed. And I would do this to avoid medication error and any distraction. And I also did yoga asana to improve my physiological resilience and become more resilient to workplace injury. At one point, I worked on a neurosciences unit, and the majority of the back surgeries that were being done on the unit were nurses. And I know the ergonomics that people use in the hospital working those long hours can cause injury. So yoga was very important to me during that time. So I also taught some yoga and mindfulness for resilience, as well as workshops for healthcare providers and counseling agencies, and tried to make connections between the two. And mindfulness in every role of my life actually reminded me of my values, and it increased my sensitivity to my own voice of conscience. So the more I embodied my values, the more opportunities came to me. And the more I listened to my conscience, the more easily I could identify an individual or systemic opportunity for change and innovation. So you can see here, there's a really big difference between the picture on the left, basically a janitor's closet, and the picture on the right, a large fancy corporation. And building an inner resume requires mindful edits and honesty about trade-offs. So I worked in different areas, from hole-in-the-wall nonprofit organizations to global corporations, and just about everything in between. I worked in diabetes treatment, neurosciences, pharmaceuticals, home care, obesity prevention, sexual health, and more. And I started to understand the moral trade-offs required in some roles. So I attempted to remedy this. I would host conferences with beautiful, tables of food that wouldn't get eaten. And I would take the food and package it up at the end and bring it to the homeless shelter down the road that I was also closely working with in poverty reduction. So I was really trying to mobilize resources, but at the same time, it didn't feel like quite enough. So my understanding of the social determinants of health deepened, and I wanted to explore global health and what resilience looks like in other places of the world. So in 2019, I traveled to Peru and learned about traditional medicine in the Andes, and this is an organic market, and there were actually medicine women who would offer herbal remedies for ailments at the stalls. I went to the Himalayas, and on the left, this is a Swami, and he actually serves as a leader in his own community by teaching young children who otherwise wouldn't have teachers, and by advocating for education. He had computers that he had bought for them to learn on. So very, very inspiring. And in South India, where my Ayurvedic doctor lives, so this is me on the roof of his clinic reading Sanskrit texts and trying to understand the translation to English and what it meant for our health. And it was such a beautiful experience. So I developed new paradigms for wellness during my travels. And in February of 2020, I decided to return home and come back to my career as a public health nurse. And typically my job would be working with families and promoting health and well-being. And within 5 to 10 days, I was supporting the community with the new COVID-19 pandemic. And so mindfulness and meditation are actually proven to increase empathy. And as I attuned to my community and my colleagues, I noticed that there was a really big need for resilience supports that wasn't yet there. So I started to print and distribute the things that I was using, like gratitude journals. I also started to offer meditation and yoga to healthcare providers, executives, and eventually donated quite a few journals and resources to surrounding schools and free libraries. I took some work in suicide prevention, and then I gave myself fully to the I Am Resilient movement. And the I Am Resilient movement is now home to a podcast for people to share their resilience tools and education, yoga, meditation, children's book publications addressing new and emerging issues for the next generation, support groups, events, and more. So I believe that we have the resources to improve the world, and it really is up to us to mobilize them. I believe that if we build our inner resumes with mindfulness, we can transform animosity to curiosity, injury to inquiry, and a planet that is barely surviving to one that is completely pristine and thriving. My inner resume ushered me to share this with you today, and I look forward to linking arms and leading the future together. So I want to leave you with a quote and some steps to keep in mind while building your inner resume. So Cinda Rushton and Monica Sharma share that every decision you make can bring you closer to or further away from your own integrity. And Ayurveda would say that every decision you make, every environment, every food, every action, everything you do can be medicine or poison. I think this is very important to keep in mind throughout the day as we, bring light to a new world, a new way of being. So when you're building your inner resume, I'm asking you to do these 3 things. 1, ask yourself, who am I? What are my values? How are these reflected in my choices and my behaviors? What are my strengths? And 2, celebrate acts of integrity and continue to explore the calls of your conscience. And number 3 is to lead with mindfulness. So if you would like to connect, please pause the video and take down this contact information and have a read of our vision, mission, and values. And lastly, there are many ways to practice mindfulness. So I would like to give you a free code to a local platform here, and you can use my name and follow the link on the screen. Thank you very much. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Namaste.